Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We've had Monday Night Football that just happened last night between the Chiefs and Broncos. We're going to start with that. Then we're going to go in our own little personal power rankings of the best teams in football and also the worst teams in football. So that's the schedule for the day. So we'll start with the Chiefs and Broncos. Chiefs won again, moving up the record to 4-0. Patrick Mahomes put a game-winning drive in the last 2 minutes of the game to put them over the Broncos. He had over 300 yards passing with only one touchdown today, so not his best game of the year, but still managed to win the game. Do you put the Chiefs as one of the best teams in football as of right now?
Yes, of course. They're 4-0. Their offense is just incredible at this point. Am I concerned about their future, like in terms of later this season? Yes, of course. It's an Andy Reid football team. But at this point, they're absolutely one of the top teams in the NFL. They might be the top team in the AFC right now. But we will see. Their schedule gets harder.
Yeah, it is. It gets much harder. And they're known for starting hot and ending not so hot. They ended cold, if you want to say. But they did play the Broncos. Case Keenum had an all-right game. No touchdowns, and threw a pick. Threw over 200 yards. And going into that game, it was pretty close throughout. The Chiefs kind of hurt themselves on penalties. Over 10 penalties for 93 yards total. Do you think that game should have been that close regarding the penalties on the Chiefs, as well as the refs admitting their mistake of the final drive of the game, missing the delay of penalty call?
Yeah, going into the game, I mean, I did predict that it would be like a 4-point win. I kind of saw that it would be a tough game just because of the factors of you're playing on the road, you're playing on Monday Night Football. I knew the Broncos would be geared up for the game, and they were. So it wasn't the Chiefs' best game. If they played flawless football, I think they win that game by 10 or more points. But like you mentioned, penalties cost them in certain parts of the game. It kept the game close. But Patrick Mahomes, I mean, what a game for him. It might not all show up in the stat sheet, but, I mean, he was incredible last night, making plays outside of the pocket, finding a lot of different receivers, extending drives, and leading that final drive to win the game was very impressive for the young quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. Mahomes has been improving a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it really shows the idea of being smart of the Chiefs to get rid of Smith and putting him as the number one quarterback. But I'm still hesitant on making him like MVP or anything like that. Like so many people have said, he's going to be this awesome player for the whole season.
Yeah, we'll see after defenses get a hold of his tape and coordinators start making adjustments. Yeah. The problem though that those opposing defenses are going to face is not just Mahomes and his incredible physical skill. I mean, we see a quarterback that can throw the ball 65, 70 yards down the field, but he's throwing to guys like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill might be the fastest guy in the NFL. He's got Travis Kelce. I mean, other than Gronkowski.
He's got run away from the cop speed,
yeah,
like Gus Johnson likes to say.
Travis Kelce might be the best tight end in football. I know that sounds a little blasphemous to say because Gronkowski is still playing, But, man, Travis Kelce, you look at him, and they call him Mini Gronk for a reason, right? Like, I mean, the guy is a physical specimen. He's fast. He's just you can't defend him with a linebacker. You can't defend him with a safety. You have to bracket coverage him, but then you leave guys like Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins on one-on-one coverage on the outside. And, I mean, pick your poison with that offense. Kareem Hunt behind Mahomes. I mean, he can run the ball, catch the ball as well as any running back in the NFL. So I am hesitant, of course, because Mahomes is young, but his vision, the weapons around him, it's going to be tough for teams to stop him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, like you said before, once they see the tape on him, it might be just a little easier. And once, because it happened with so many other young quarterbacks, once there's tape on them, they're figured out and they don't know how to adapt. Like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady have been the ones that can adapt more than anybody. When someone looks at their tape, they still can't stop them because they adapt so well in situations on the spot. It depends on if Mahomes is the same thing, but it's a big we'll see.
Yeah, and we saw last night how the passing game, especially in the first half for Kansas City, wasn't clicking as it had been in the previous 3 games, where they were putting up monster first half numbers mostly through the air. Last night we saw them really rely on Kareem Hunt. 19 carries, 121 yards for Hunt, 3 receptions for 54 yards. So yesterday was the most Kareem Hunt type of game that we've seen them have this year, and it was nice to see that they can win in more than just Mahomes dropping back 35 times and chucking the ball down the field. So I see what you're saying. I understand why you're hesitant. It's an Andy Reid team. It's a young quarterback, but gosh, even if the passing game isn't on fire, they can just turn around and hand the ball to 27, and that guy, man, he can run inside, outside. What a player he is, huh?
Yeah, he's unreal, and he's not really looked at anymore because of how dominant Mahomes has been. But he should not be looked at. He should not be underutilized in this offense. He should be the forefront of their offense still.
And if you look at it, Kareem Hunt is super young. Tyreek Hill is super young. Mahomes super young. This is an offense that they can be, if they can keep this up, we're looking at the next 3-4 years in the NFL that they might be torturing opposing defenses.
Yeah. But again, it's the Chiefs with Andy Reid as their coach. I think we should put that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I know. You're skeptical.
In Madden, I would totally use them. But right now, Andy Reid's the coach, and I think that's going to be a factor in this. Yeah, in a factor in how they're playing throughout the rest of the season. Yeah.
So we look at Denver. I want to kind of look at them for a minute. They played a pretty good game last night. They were actually leading at halftime. They lose 27-23, which isn't a terrible result given that they're playing a Chiefs team that's on fire. What do you think of Denver last night, and what do you think of their first 4 games?
Mediocre. I think that's the one word I would use as the Denver Broncos, mediocre.
Yeah. Do you think that they have a chance at a wild card berth in the AFC?
I don't think so. No, I don't see it. I see it as still a rebuilding period for the Broncos. I give them a couple more years before they're back in the playoffs. Von Miller can make that defense great, but you can only do so much on that defensive side when the offensive side is still lacking.
The crazy thing is that Von Miller and Bradley Chubb are such a dynamic 1-2 pass rush combo, and it must have been so frustrating last night because every time it looked like they had Mahomes, he just got away, and he completed a pass outside the pocket. He threw it away. Either way, he took 1 sack last night for 0 yards, and it felt like Mahomes was under pressure for quite a bit of plays.
So under pressure, pushing down on me, pushing down on you.
Yeah,
you know that song, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. But what I'm saying is, let's hold off on making any assumptions for the playoffs because it's, again, week 4.
Yeah.
Going into week 5.
I think the Broncos have an outside chance of being there at the end of the season, though. I liked what they did with their running game last night. I know that Keenum didn't have the best numbers, but they were controlling the clock. They were keeping the Chiefs off the field, especially in the first half. You had Phillip Lindsay And Royce Freeman. They both had really good games. I mean, Lindsey had 12 carries for 69 yards, a touchdown. Royce Freeman, 8 for 67 and a touchdown. So you're looking at a 5.8 and an 8.4 average, respectively, there. So
you're saying they should get the ball more than they have already?
Yeah, because they only had 22 carries, but they had 159 yards. That's a 7.2 average. I mean, I'm sure they'd probably like to have run the ball a few more times. Last night, I feel like they did more in the first half because they were ahead or it was a close game, whereas in the second half, they kind of had to play. I don't know. It was a little more contentious. They did have the lead for most of the second half, of course, but it was a different game. The first half, they were running the ball, especially that drive in the second quarter right before halftime where they kicked a field goal. I know that they ran the ball quite a bit that drive. So, I don't know. I think the Broncos, if you're a fan of Denver, I think you got to be pretty satisfied from what you've seen from the first 4 weeks. You're not blown away, but you're not upset either. They're 2-2.
You're kind of expecting this?
Yeah, they're 2-2. Their defense is okay. Their offense looks okay.
I just think signing Case Keenum to try to turn your team around it's not going to happen because he's a journeyman. Like, he had one great season in Minnesota, and he's always been
He's kind of a bridge
average
quarterback. He's a bridge for the next guy, whoever they draft.
Do you think it's going to be a draft pick? Because this year's draft coming up, there's not really a quarterback that's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be the guy for a team.
I mean, I could definitely see, especially with the whole how Paxton Lynch just was a huge failure in Denver. That was a terrible draft pick. They don't have a young quarterback waiting in the wings right now, so I could definitely see Denver. I don't know if they'll spend a first-round pick, and of course it's hard to project the draft, especially the draft order from week 4 of the NFL, but I could see them picking a quarterback in maybe round 1, round 2, round 3, like somewhere near with one of their first couple picks where the guy has a bright future. He might not be the Baker Mayfield of this draft, but do you kind of see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Someone to groom, while Keenum plays the next year.
I don't see him as a number 1 pick, though.
No. Not a number 1 pick. But
maybe 10?
What if they had like the 10 to 15th pick in the first round and they got the first or second quarterback off the board, Yeah,
I could see that happening, but I don't see a quarterback going in the top 5 this year. This seems like a defensive year anyways for drafting.
Right now, it certainly does. I think we'll get a clear picture of what quarterbacks might be first-round picks as the college year goes on, because we see these quarterbacks start to play in conference games now. Of course, they'll be playing in bigger games, bowl games, playoff games, and things like that. So, as of right now, you're right. This doesn't look like a very good quarterback draft.
Yeah, I think they're still marinating in college. I give a year or two, maybe the year after this could be a good quarterback draft class, but right now I just don't see a number 1 pick being a quarterback.
Yeah,
I see it as like a defensive player, definitely.
So the Broncos, I'm looking at their next 3 games here, and I'm going to let you know who they play. So they're 2-2 right now. They will play the New York Jets.
Ooh, they could win that game.
It's in New York, so it will be a road game.
That doesn't matter.
It will be across country.
It's the Jets.
Sure. But that's a game that they could win.
No offense to Jets fans, but how you've been playing, you gotta admit, it's been pretty lackluster.
I think that there's a possibility for a good game there. I'm not sure. I would take the Broncos, but the Jets are actually favored 2.5. Moving past that, they play...
I think it's a home field advantage.
Yeah. They play the Rams the following week, which is going to be tough. It is in Denver. And then they play Arizona. So 2 of their next 3 games I feel like are pretty winnable for Denver. What do you think?
I agree with that, especially against, you said Arizona is one of them?
Yeah, it goes New York Jets
Arizona
on the road.
has been playing pretty rough lately, so they can easily win one of those. I see them taking at least one of those games.
Yeah, Jets on the road, Rams at home, Cardinals at home. Or, excuse me, on the road.
And the Chiefs, you said, are playing... Who are they playing next week?
The Chiefs, they get to play... Like I mentioned, we're going to know real quick if this team is legit. They play Jacksonville this Sunday, and then they play the New England Patriots on primetime.
So that's a pretty rough 2 weeks.
They're home against Jacksonville. They're on the road against the Patriots. So we'll see. Maybe they go 1-1 in that. Maybe
definitely. But we're gonna take a short break here. When we get back, we'll talk about our top teams in the week since through the 4 weeks of the NFL, and we'll get right on that when we get back to you.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm Marc Souza. I'm here with Jeff. We just recapped the Monday Night Football game last night. That was an awesome game to watch if you happen to catch it. Very exciting. Ended with a Mahomes game-winning touchdown drive. And we'll be moving on to our power rankings for the all too early NFL power rankings heading into week 5. Jeff, who do you have at your number 5 in your top 5 NFL teams as of right now?
Well, my number 5 team is the Bengals. And I say the Bengals because they have been playing very well lately. They've beaten some high-profile teams, and I feel like personally that that Marvin Lewis should not really be the head coach, because I think he should have been fired a long time ago. But with this team they've been playing very well these first 4 weeks.
Yeah, they definitely have. 3-1. They beat the Colts. They beat the Ravens, both by 11 points. They beat the Panthers by 10 points. And, of course, that thrilling come-from-behind win on Sunday against the Falcons. Andy Dalton's playing pretty good. Like you said, I didn't really see them kind of having this start to the season. Do you expect them to be there at the end? Do you expect them to at least have a playoff spot?
I could see wild card. AFC North, I could definitely see that also, because of how poor everyone else is doing in the AFC North.
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
It seems like that division is wide open right now, and the Bengals are currently at the top. So my number 5 team is actually the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them in the top 5, just barely making it. Again, they come off an impressive win against the Jets, 31-12. They beat the Patriots, of course, 31-20. That was a very impressive win. So they sit at 3-1. Of course, they lost to Tennessee in a weird game, 9-6, almost like a baseball score. But I think that their formula is tried and true, where I'm not sure if the Bengals will be there at the end, but I think Jacksonville will certainly be a playoff team if they don't win their division. I think they'll be a wild card team. Their offense does enough. Their defense probably is the best, most formidable defense in the NFL, in my opinion. But, yeah, moving on, Jeff, who's your number 4 in your power rankings?
I'm saying the Chicago Bears. Their defense has been improved so much. Is that your number 4?
It is not.
Okay.
This is another team that we
I saw you writing
agree on.
something. I'm like, did I just copy? But no. Number 4 for me is the Bears. They've just been playing so well on defense. Their offense has been clicking with Trubinsky, but I still don't see them as this is in the first 4 weeks. So we'll see how they do going into the NFC North. But right now, I think they're one of the top teams in the league defensive-wise, and they're getting up there in offense.
Yeah, this last game was a breakout game for Trubisky. They were playing a pretty bad defense in Tampa Bay, but regardless, he had a great game. It might be a game where he's going to be able to build on. You mentioned it. Their defense is fantastic. The addition of Khalil Mack has absolutely given them a boost on that side of the ball. They're a defense that opposing offenses don't really want to see right now. They're not just Khalil Mack, but he is, of course, their star player, especially on defense. Again, 3-1, another 3-1 team. They lost to Green Bay, 24-23. So their one loss was by 1 point against a really good team. They beat the Seahawks, they beat the Cardinals, and of course they beat the Bucs. So their next couple of games, they play the Dolphins this Sunday in a match of 2 3-1 teams. And then the Bears play the Patriots.
That's going to be their ultimate test.
And I think I misspoke. They don't play this Sunday. They're actually on a bye. So they play next week against the Dolphins, and then the following week they'll play the Patriots. But yes, that will definitely be a test for them. So my number 4 team is the Minnesota Vikings. What do you think about that?
Ooh, I don't know.
Tough start for them, 1-2-1. Not what they were looking for.
I wouldn't put them in the I wouldn't put them in the top 5.
All right. Here's my reasoning. I think that they're a very good team on both sides of the ball. Their defense hasn't really shown it yet, but I trust that Mike Zimmer will change the course of their season on that side of the ball. Offensively, I really like the addition of Kirk Cousins. I think Diggs and Thielen and Dalvin Cook are a great trio to complement Kirk Cousins. So I see their season turning around. They play the Eagles this week. That's going to be a tough game. We'll definitely preview that in the coming days. But would you say that's a big test early on?
Absolutely, but I still wouldn't put them in the rankings that high. I don't know what 1-2-1 speaks for itself, man. Come on. You're right. Putting a team with 1 win in the top 5.
Absolutely. I expect them to be one of the top 5 teams at the end of the year, and I think they still are a top 5 team now. But that loss against Buffalo was terrible. I think they just overlooked their opponent. But I thought they played pretty good against the Rams. So we'll see. Who's your number 3?
New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans Saints.
Their offense has been looking pretty stellar.
Other than that crazy Week 1 loss against Ryan Fitzpatrick, they've
which they also
taken care of
played
business.
very well also.
Yeah. So they're coming off a 33-18 win, of course, on Sunday against the Giants. They play the Redskins and the Ravens in their next couple games. But yeah, do you see them as the favorite to win their division?
Yeah, definitely. Drew Brees, I think, wants another championship before he calls it a career. And I think he might get that. Who knows?
Yeah, their defense has been a little bit concerning. I mean, they gave up 48 to Tampa. They gave up 37 to Atlanta, but that's usually a shootout anyways. I'm not that worried about them. I think, of course, that as long as their defense is decent, that offense is explosive. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. That's just a tough team. Sean Payton's one of the
Michael Thomas
best.
has been a beast.
He's an absolute monster.
No one has been able to cover him this whole season.
Yeah, he's such a great player. Just an all-around good wide receiver. You need a big play. You need a 3rd and 10. Like Michael Thomas is your guy, and Alvin Kamara is a great player. They also get Mark Ingram back. What do you think? Do you think he'll boost them going forward?
I could definitely see that. I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You can't make the team worse.
I also have the Saints at number 3, so we both agree there. That's the first one that we agree on. All right, so number 2, who do you have?
I know what I've said about this team, but as of right now, Kansas City.
All right, so despite all your
if this season was a 5-week season, then they could be one of the greatest of all time. But there's 17 weeks, one bye week.
Let me ask you this:
okay.
if they lose this Sunday against Jacksonville, does that drop them out of your top 5, or do you think that they would still be in it?
I'll put them in the 4 or 5 range.
Okay. It's going to be a good game, man. Like that, I'm looking forward to that matchup just to see that offense play that defense. And number 2, I agree. I also have the Chiefs. They just look. They're just so good. I know how bad they are on defense right now. And they're really bad. Don't get it wrong, but that offense. I mean, if you're asking me, I need 45 points to win a game. It's probably between them and the Rams at this point. Like, which offense you'd rather have? I just think that they can score with anybody, so that's going to give them a great chance in any game. So, yes, I also have the Kansas City Chiefs number 2. What about your number 1 team?
Right.
I think I know who it is.
Do ya?
I think I do.
Okay. Well, we'll play a process of elimination. Is your team NFC?
It is.
Okay, now your turn. What do you think mine is?
Does your team play in California?
Yes, they do.
So you have the Chargers?
Yeah, absolutely. I have actually the 49ers. No, the Raiders. No, okay, actually, on 3 we'll say it. 1, 2, 3. Rams. Okay, yeah, that's
all
what
right.
I thought.
So
is there any question, though?
No, they look like the best team. I mean, I know that they just suffered a couple injuries to Aqib Talib and Marcus
Didn't
Peters.
show much of slowing down, though.
They're going to get scored on by teams, but at the end of the day, you have a defense with Marcus Peters, and you have Ndamukong Suh paired with Aaron Donald. I mean, man, there's going to be games where they're going to be able to sack the quarterback 5 or 6 times, create some turnovers with those beasts on their defensive line. And do we really need to talk about their offense? Or at this point, I mean, they're as automatic as it gets. They lead the NFL in third down conversions. They have the lowest 3-and-out percentage in the NFL. I mean, if they're not scoring points or moving the ball, they're always putting their defense in good situations where teams are having to go the length of the field to score against them. Do you see them, like they were, a lot of people were hyped about them before the season. So through 4 games, they've obviously shown you what you thought, or?
I think it's just this team has just proved why they were 11-5 last year, and they're going to be better this year. They haven't showed any signs of slowing down. They've been bulldozing teams, and Jared Goff has been turning into his own little great quarterback, so there hasn't been much to stop this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Rams play the Seahawks this weekend, and then they play the Broncos, and then they play the Niners. So they could get on a little bit of a roll here. What do you think?
Absolutely. But if they lose one game, it's not going to change the fact they're the number 1 team in the league.
Do you think that they'll take care of Seattle pretty easily? It is in Seattle.
Yes.
They
Seattle's not the
usually
same
give
team.
Russell Wilson fits. Like, they get after him.
But even with that was the best team in the league. The Seattle Seahawks were the best team in the league when they beat them. Now it's completely swapped.
Jeff Fisher was really good against Seattle.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher.
But speaking of Jeff Fisher,
what about him?
Nothing. But Sean McVay, I mean, he's proven to be at least a offensive mastermind through his first year and 4 games as coach of the Los Angeles Rams. I like their little dynamic that they have, him and Wade Phillips. He kind of runs the offense. Wade, the old defensive coordinator who's seen it all, runs the defense. I like their little thing they got going on, just the 1-2 punch between the coaches there. What do you think about that?
I do. I think McVay is in the right scheme, right place, right time, like with this talent of a team. And the players seem to enjoy playing for him. I think he's a good players coach. And I think this momentum is going to continue into the postseason, to be honest.
What's your biggest concern about the Rams moving forward? Like, what can you see that might be a problem that they aren't holding the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season?
That's injuries. I mean,
okay. Anything else? Like, is it
maybe golf? Maybe golf not getting those accurate passes thrown anymore. Maybe struggling once again, going back to like when people thought he couldn't throw the ball. Maybe he gets back to that situation.
I've been very impressed with Goff through the first 4 games. I was somebody who was kind of a critic of his last year. I still
a
think
lot of people were.
I still think that I'm not going to say a system quarterback, but he's in a great system. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree with that completely. McVay is a very smart coach.
So I think we're waiting to see Goff do something like amazing, maybe pull his team into, like how Mahomes brought the Chiefs in yesterday and got the win. How it was like an ugly game, but it wasn't all working, but they figured it out. Like I think we're waiting for that for Goff. Would you agree with that? Like to maybe have you have more confidence in them moving forward. Would that be like the icing on the cake for you?
Yeah, I think if Goff obviously still needs some stuff to improve on. So if once he gets better, this team's going to improve around him, and this team can only get better. It's only looking up from here.
It's crazy how much talent they have. We talked about the Chiefs' weapons. I mean, Gurley, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks. That's a great little stable of weapons that Goff and McVay have at their disposal. They run great plays, great play design. They can always turn and hand the ball to Gurley if the passing game isn't working, but they're going to be a tough team. I think they're the best team in the NFC for sure.
We have them number one in the whole NFL.
I expect them to definitely have a first round bye in the playoffs. We'll see what their record ends up being, but I can see like a 13-3.
All right, and we're going to take another short break here. When we get back, we'll talk about our 5 worst teams in the NFL. That's going to be a little fun. We'll get right on that when we get back to you.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We've talked about Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and Broncos. We've talked about our top 5 teams. And now we're going to go to our 5 worst teams. Would you like to start this off, Mark?
Sure, I can start it off. We're going with the best of the worst 5 to start.
Absolutely.
So the 28th ranked team, in my opinion, is the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay. And why is that?
I think Andrew Luck is doing what he can with the little that he has. I don't know. They've been pretty competitive. They did beat the Redskins, which was really shocking to me. They lost 2 of their other 3 to the Eagles and the Texans by less than a touchdown in both. So they're actually not doing terrible. I just don't think the team is relatively good on defense. And other than Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton, they don't really have much on offense. I know that they have Marlon Mack and Hines is that other running back that they like to throw the ball to, but just a deficient team on both sides of the ball. What do you think?
Well, they're not my bottom. They're not my best of 5. They're actually not in my top bottom 5, actually, because Andrew Luck just looks to be improving with that team. But I can see where you're getting at. Just lackluster talent on both sides of the ball makes sense. But my fifth worst team in the league is the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they beat the Minnesota Vikings, so I put them up a little high than they maybe should. But they showed.
Do you think that game means anything?
They showed
like
promise. They showed
thing?
Promise.
Okay, but I mean, for me, that game was just a game that. Like a fluke game, it happens once a year for every team. I feel like. Do you put a lot of stock? Like if they lost that game, would they be?
They'd be lower.
Sure.
I put them second worst, maybe even the worst.
Sure. It was a great win. I mean,
that's why I put them up a little high.
Their defense really stepped up. I mean, it was 17-0 first 5 or 6 minutes of that game. That game was.
It was a shutout.
The Vikings
for a long
were
time.
in a hole early, so credit to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, my number 4 is the 49ers.
San Francisco 49ers is your 29th ranked team. Okay. So the loss of Jimmy Garoppolo, of course. You think they'd be in your bottom 5 if he was still there?
I put him in the bottom 10 still, but not at the bottom 5. Losing a player like that, it hurts. And also just so many injuries have affected this team. And the way they've been playing has just been mediocre at best. They've had some high-point games, granted, but their defense is anything but stellar. They don't have many offensive weapons that are feared in the NFL, I guess you can say, or watched in the NFL. And there's just too many problems with this team.
Yeah, they're just such an injury-riddled team. I mean, it's hard to overlook the franchise quarterback and the starting running back being injured, but beyond that, they're injured at every position everywhere. Richard Sherman is hurt. Goodwin has been hurt. Both tackles were hurt last game. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, the 49ers drinking game that's out there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so for me, I have at 29, which is the 4th best of the bottom 5. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wow, you dropped them like a light, didn't you?
I don't believe what they had in the first couple weeks was going to sustain. And with their getting crushed by the Chicago Bears and now that they're going back to Jameis Winston, I just see it not getting better. And beyond their really good receiving core, which I like, Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Godwin. Their running backs are terrible. Their first-round pick, Ronald Jones, was inactive for the first couple games. He hasn't really shown anything on offense for them. They definitely need a spark from the backfield. They don't have it. Their defense is atrocious. Like, let's just be honest. Even if you think their offense is okay, their defense has got to be bottom 5. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, without a question.
So, yes, I am kind of not taking their record right now of 2-2 into account. I'm just thinking, I think they're one of the worst 5 teams in the NFL.
I can agree with that. It's to some extent. They're still, like I said, they're still 2-2. But I would definitely consider them like bottom 10.
So they're on a bye this week, and then they play the Falcons, the Browns, and the Bengals in their next 3.
I can see them losing all 3, to be honest.
Yeah, if they do, then I'm sure the next time we do this, they'll be down there for you as well. So,
who do you think their best player is?
Mike Evans.
Hmm.
Mike Evans, he's a really good player. I think that if he was paired with a good quarterback, I mean, I get Fitzpatrick had a couple good games, but over the last year, 2 years, I think if he had a guy like Drew Brees, can you just imagine the numbers that he could put up?
If only.
So who do you have as your 3rd worst team at number 30?
The Oakland Raiders.
The Oakland Raiders with Mr. John Gruden back at the helm.
Yes.
All right. Why do you say that?
There's no identity on this team. Marshawn Lynch is not considered an identity, in my opinion. Without Khalil Mack, that defense has been just torn apart. And Derek Carr has not been playing to his contract.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in Oakland. I mean, you bring in Gruden. Carr has had a very uneven first 4 games. He did show up against the Browns. I wouldn't say he played stellar, but he pulled his team back and won the game. So I got to give him credit there. They did lose to the Dolphins, Broncos, and Rams, which isn't the worst 3 teams to lose to, at least at this juncture. But I don't have them in my bottom 5, but I could definitely see them falling into the bottom 5. They play the Chargers and the Seahawks in their next 2 games. I will say if they go less than 1-1 in those 2, they'll be in my bottom 5.
Okay, so they're still up there for you?
I considered them, but they're on the outside. I considered the Niners too, but they're not in my bottom 5. So my number 30 team, 3rd worst of the bottom 5 power rankings, the New York Football Giants.
Ooh, I forgot about them.
Yeah, so
I still wouldn't put them in the bottom 5, though.
I love Saquon Barkley, and Odell Beckham is a really good player. I just think that their defense is decent. It's not, I wouldn't say good. They in my opinion, they were relatively good against the Saints. They gave up 33 points at the end of the day, but in the first half, they held, I think, 4 field goals by the Saints, and their offense couldn't sustain. I think their defense gave it up at the end just because they were gassed. They'd been on the field too long. But yeah, you look at the Giants, they've lost to the Jaguars, the Cowboys. They did beat the Texans, and they lost to New Orleans. But I think the show's over for Eli. What do you think?
It's been over.
Do you think that the Giants should have taken maybe Darnold over?
I was thinking they should have taken a quarterback. Because they're denying the fact that Eli Manning's done, which he is.
I really like Saquon Barkley, but the problem is for the Giants is that if they have a top 5 pick this year, it's not, at least as of right now, a very high quarterback draft. So they might not.
They really lost their opportunity to get a big time quarterback.
There was a bunch of, last year was a quarterback draft, and they had the number 2 pick, and they did not take quarterback. So that might haunt them.
Yeah, who knows? But Barkley is a great talent, no doubt about it. I'm not taking any away from him. But the Giants just picked him instead of what they really needed was a quarterback to replace Manning with.
Yeah. So number 31, and now in your bottom 2, these are the 2 worst teams in the NFL, at least through the first 4 weeks. Who do you have as the 2nd worst team?
The New York Jets.
The New York Jets, not the Giants.
Not the Giants, but the New York Jets.
Wow.
You lose to the Browns, I'm putting you that low.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, the Browns are not my last team to be the worst team in the league.
So let's talk about the Jets.
Do we have to?
Yeah, they're 1-3. They they crushed the Lions on that opening night, opening Monday Football.
They lost to the 49ers, they lost to the Browns, and they've lost to, who they just lose to?
Wait, you're talking about the Jets? They didn't lose to the 49ers.
I'm sorry.
They lost to the Dolphins,
the Browns,
and the Jags.
Because you said Lions, I thought Lions. That's
Gotcha.
my fault.
Gotcha. So
they both are terrible.
They lost to the Dolphins, Browns, Jags.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I like what they're doing, though. I like
team.
what the Jets are doing. I don't know. They're not in my bottom 5. They play the Broncos this week at home. I think if they win that game, I think that'll set them up to have a decent season, maybe.
If they don't, they're still on my bottom 2.
All right. So my 31st team, my 2nd worst team in the NFL through 4 weeks, is the Arizona Cardinals.
Really? Not okay. You'll see why I'm shocked about that in a sec.
Okay. Well, I mean, Arizona, I like that they made the change at quarterback because that team was just going nowhere with Sam Bradford. You might as well play the rookie that you invested a high draft pick in. Yeah, I mean, you look at their games. They got crushed by the Redskins. They got crushed by the Rams. They lost to the Bears in a tight game, and they lost to Seattle. 3 of those losses are at home. So they're 0-3 at home. What do you think about that?
How can you be 0-3 at home? Especially at the beginning of the season when the crowd's all riled up and optimistic about the season.
And I'll tell you this. If they don't beat the 49ers this week, they might not have a win until week 6, week 7. They play the Vikings after the 49ers. And that game is in Minnesota, and I don't know if they're going to drop that game like they did against Buffalo. But yeah, that's what I have for 31. David Johnson's a great player. Larry Fitzgerald is still a good player. He looks like he's been suffering through a hamstring injury for the first few weeks. Hope to see him get back to his normal form. But yeah, for me, they're just a bottom 5 team. I think they'll be picking in the top 5 this year.
Okay. Who is my last team? The worst team in the league to me is the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
And don't hide your note like I'm going to why would I steal you? It's an opinion-based power ranking.
I don't know.
Anyways.
We don't have too many of the same ones. I'm actually surprised here.
Yeah. The Arizona Cardinals are my worst team in the NFL.
Okay.
What you said really brought home the point. 0-3 at home. When Sam Bradford becomes your starter and then becomes your third string. And injuries, David Johnson's playing not to the level people thought of him as. This team is going nowhere fast.
Yeah, they have a few nice pieces, but they're still an older team. I just think that it's going to get worse before it gets better for them. Jury's still out on their coach. Not sure, if he's good, if he's bad. It's hard to tell when you have that quarterback situation. So, to be determined on their future, to see if it'll be a short or long-term rebuild. But that's your worst team. My worst team is the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
So you have the Buffalo Bills as your...
Number 5.
Yeah, your 28th ranked NFL football team. I have them as dead last just because I don't think they're a very good team, obviously. I think their win against Minnesota was a huge fluke, something that I don't think anybody expected. I know that killed a lot of survival leagues if you play survival football.
And we'll talk about Fantasy Football Podcast on tomorrow on Wednesday. No, I lied. We talk about that on Friday.
Yes.
I apologize.
So the Buffalo Bills are my worst team in the NFL. Josh Allen, I'm not sure. I didn't really like him going into the draft, so I am a little biased there. Until he proves me wrong, I'm still going to maintain that he wasn't a first-round talent, but we will see. Well, Sean McCoy is probably their best player, and he's just running back on the wrong side of 30. So, yeah. I think that it'll be a tough rest of the season for them. What do you think?
I completely agree with that. This team they're again, like the Cardinals, they're going nowhere fast.
So I got to ask you.
Okay.
Not that, your opinion is wrong, but...
I got a feeling that you don't like my opinions.
You really think that the Bills are better than the Jets?
That one game put them over the Jets, in my opinion.
Okay.
The Jets have not done anything to impress me.
Who would you rather have, Darnold or Josh Allen?
Get back to me in a couple more weeks.
Okay. Well,
it's hard, but right now I would pick...
Who'd you like better going
I would
into the
pick
draft?
Sam Allen. How's that? Can I combine them both?
Well, going back, who did you like better entering the draft?
I like Sam Darnold just because USC, and as a USC guy versus a Wyoming guy. But right now, they both had shining moments and not so shining moments. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in either basket yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our bottom 5 teams in the NFL.
Yes, it is. So do you disagree with my last one? Or do you disagree with me picking the Cardinals as my last pick?
No, absolutely not. It was either them or Buffalo for me. It was a coin flip, and I chose Buffalo. So I'm with you. I think we're pretty. I think those two teams, that one team is the closest that we got on these rankings because your bottom 5. You started off with the Bills, and I had the Bills at last. The Niners, Oakland, and the Jets aren't even in my bottom 5, and they are in yours. So we were closest on Arizona.
Yeah, I think that was the only one we matched on. No, wait.
Well, we both had the Bills in the bottom 5, but they were on opposite ends. So
true. And all right, who would you say could edge into the worst team of the league?
I mean, a couple of teams that you have, I could see, like I mentioned, the Niners, Oakland, and the Jets. I don't have them in my bottom 5, but if we were to do this next week, they might enter the bottom 5 if one of those teams or multiple teams in that group has a really bad game this week. The Jets and the Raiders and the Niners all three have winnable games this week. So if they lose, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of those teams fall in the bottom 5.
Maybe. But we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we'll talk about whatever else there is left in the NFL that we think should be discussed. And we'll get right on that when we get back to you.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC podcast. Football, of course. We have talked about the Monday Night Football game. Great game. Chiefs getting that win over the Broncos. We did our top 5 power rankings and our bottom 5 power rankings in the NFL so far through week 4. The, of course, all too early power rankings that you should not take for anything more than a grain of salt with. So, moving on. I want to talk about some news in the NFL. Le'Veon Bell. It sounds like he is set to return to the Steelers in week number 7. What do you think about that?
Some people say it's too early. Some people say he should be back now. That's coming from Steelers fans, of course. But it's going to be some hostility once he returns to the team, I think.
Yeah, I think there was some hurt feelings, of course. That some Steelers players were very vocal about him being away from the team and holding out when he said that he wouldn't and all that jazz. And then on the other side, I understand his point of view completely, holding out for a long-term deal. He doesn't want to risk injury. He's in a bad situation in terms of what he wants, and at this point he's been holding out, so I kind of see that. Do you think that in week 7, if he does in fact return in week 7, do you think that he would be reinserted right away into the starting lineup? Or
I think he has to be.
Yeah, Connor's been doing pretty good in replacement of him, but would you expect maybe a split in playing time, at least for the initial week?
I would say 70-30 to Bell.
Okay. Are you concerned with his conditioning?
Yes. That's
okay.
why I'm saying 70-30.
So what would you say? I mean, let's just assume he comes back week 7. Would you say week 8, week 9 is when you get the full Le'Veon Bell, like the full conditioned, I can carry the ball?
Who knows coming from Le'Veon Bell? Who knows at this point?
Do you see him putting himself on a snap count when he comes back to avoid?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So it just sounds like
it's going to be his way or the highway.
Sounds like it's just going to be an ongoing saga. Would you agree?
The Steelers vs. Bell is going to continue until Star Wars Episode 30. So,
and do you think that he'll eventually be able to work out a long-term deal with the Steelers, or do you think he's off to another team?
By the end of the season, I see him with another team. By next year's free agency, he's going to be on someone other team's social media, signing their contract in their offices.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what kind of deal he's going to get. His next deal is going to be very intriguing to me because it's going to tell you everything you need to know about the running back free agent market in the next, 5-10 years or so.
Yeah. It's going to be a Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes definitely in his next free agency.
Very interesting.
If he's not traded, that is.
All right, I have other running back news that I feel is very important. Leonard Fournette. He seems to be injury prone. He's always got something going on. He is out indefinitely. His coach, Doug Marrone, said when asked about his status, "I really don't know. Believe me, if I knew exactly what the deal was and I could tell you 3, 6, 10 games, IR, whatever, I would. I just don't know. Those injuries are tough. We talked about it by position. We talk about it every other way. I thought he was looking good. You guys see him working in practice, but it's different when you're playing in the game. The game is different. So, not exactly the most encouraging update from his head coach, Leonard Fournette. Do you think he'll be out a while?
From what the coach said, it sounds like it, and they just, maybe he says doesn't know anything, but in reality he does, and they just don't want to give up. Hey, he's going to be gone for a long time.
Yeah. I think that the Jaguars, and they're set up, they've had a good start to their season. I think they can be patient. So in terms of them moving forward, I think they're going to be overly cautious, maybe to the point where he is out an extra week or two, because they want him for the playoffs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess that's up to Le'Veon to decide if he wants to play in the playoffs or not.
You mean Fournette?
I'm sorry, Fournette. My fault.
Yeah, so of course Fournette wants to play in the playoffs, but would you say that they're going to err on the side of caution just because they're looking ahead?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to risk one of my top running backs to get hurt in a postseason matchup that cost him a couple years of his career, which could very well happen.
What do you think about Fournette and his outlook moving forward? They spent a top 5 draft pick on him. I think that he's been a little underwhelming because and I'm not going to say a bust because he's good, but
I'm not going to say he's bad, but I think he's playing decent. He's playing positively.
We've seen him with a foot injury, ankle injury, hamstring injury through the first 2 years. Not good sign for a running back if you're, moving forward. A guy that's going to get the ball.
I think that's the price you pay for being a running back. Your legs are the most opportune to get damaged.
Yeah. So, I hope he gets back healthy. He's a really good player. But, we will see how that goes. Other news, we have 2 players coming back from suspension this week. They could be boosts to their individual teams. The first one that I'll start with is Julian Edelman returns to the Patriots. Of course, they have a quick turnaround as they play Thursday night against the Indianapolis Colts. Do you think that Julian Edelman will be back in right away, inserted in the starting lineup, playing a full, load of snaps? Or do you think, again, like Le'Veon Bell, maybe he'll be, reintroduced slowly?
No, Edelman's playing right away on Thursday with Gordon and Gronkowski. This could be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, I agree. I think he comes back right away and is, conditioning is always an issue. Players will say that they've been working out, but game condition is different than practice and, gym conditioning. So I think he'll take some plays off, of course, to get a breather, but in that offense, I think he'll be a boost. What do you think for that offense moving forward?
Well, he's obviously it's not gonna hurt him being in the lineup, but he definitely can boost up the rest of the team.
Yeah, it gives Brady, of course, a familiar weapon. If Gordon can be that big addition to the team, Edelman, of course, provides that move the chains ability inside the numbers, that slot receiver. He's Tom Brady's favorite target, at least throughout the years. I know that Gronk is their big play guy, but Edelman's the guy that Brady really relies on in key situations. So I think he will be a big boost. Another player coming back to a solid offense is Mark Ingram. He rejoins the Saints coming off his suspension. Alvin Kamara has been just straight up killing it out there. He's been dynamic. How do you see Ingram coming back? I wouldn't expect a 50-50 split, but do you think that Ingram will regain his role as maybe the short yardage back and, maybe 8 to 10 carries?
I think they're going to be in lately. I think 8 to 10 carries is a fair estimate for your first game back. Don't put too much pressure on the guy right away. So be gentle with him, and then keep going from there. Sorry, continue.
I was going to say, so last year we saw Kamara be irrelevant, and then he jumps Peterson, and then by the end of the year, he's the number 1 running back over Ingram. And with the first 4 games of this year, Kamara's numbers
Ingram's definitely going to be part of the offense, though.
Yeah, but what my point where I'm getting to is, do you see it as Kamara's backfield now, or do you see it as like a 60-40 Kamara backfield?
I guess we'll have to see when Ingram comes back now, don't we?
Yeah.
It all depends on how they play him during this comeback. But that is all we have time for today. Join us next time. We'll be talking more about stuff like football and more football. So we'll get back. We've talked about the Monday Night Football, Chiefs, Broncos. We've talked about our Power 5 teams. We've talked about our Bottom 5 teams. And we've talked about players coming back from injury and or suspension. And we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.